Greg and Chris, post-game from the field. I told you they'd go 7-2, Chris. I told you they'd go 7-2. Somehow, some way, 24-19, an ugly game. But the San Diego State Aztecs have a winning record.
Yeah, you said 7-2 when we were standing here 3 weeks ago, and they made it to 7-2. And I think Brady Hoke said it. I mean, look, we didn't make it easy, but we got there. And let me play a little maybe amateur psychologist a little bit, because they just still don't seem like they're able to handle the fact that they're better, than the team they're playing. I mean, it's really been the same game 3 weeks in a row, hasn't it? I mean, at New Mexico, at Wyoming, and tonight, you felt they were the better team, but they just couldn't stand the prosperity of being the better team. And I think it almost makes sense, because when it's been 12 years since you've won 7 games in a season, it's been 15 years since you've been 7-2, so you don't have the experience of being the better team. I mean, it's almost like they might be more comfortable next week when they're not the better team against TCU.
And they won't be.
No.
TCU's pretty darn good. But, and obviously you guys, I'm sure, talked about this in your broadcast too, but these are the games the Aztecs lost last year, the year before, and for years upon years on end. 5 turnovers, a turnover at the 1-yard line going in that goes back for a 6 the other way on a fumble. And I thought maybe the most telling moment, or the turning point of the game, was right after that fumble, Chris, because the Aztecs turn it around, go back down the field, score. Took less than 3 minutes for them to turn a deficit into a lead.
Yeah, they've done, and that's something they've actually done all year, is when something bad happens, and I mean bad, that's really bad, they're able to somehow focus on the next play. And that is something that they're very good at, and that has served them very well. I would say they did that in the first half of this game. I mean, they had a fumble, and then they block a field goal. Then next play, they throw an interception, and they hold them to a field goal. So it was 6-0. They were losing, despite the fact that the first 25 minutes of the game, Colorado State had time of possession 22 of those 25 minutes. So they have made mistakes throughout the year. They've had bad plays, but I think that's a credit to the coaching and the way that they work with these kids, is that somehow they're able to go and look ahead to the next play. And you're right. Their best drive of the night might have been the one right after the 89-yard fumble went against them. And a lot of other teams might have crumbled after a play like that.
We talked on our preview podcast about the defense and the need to see those big negative plays. And I thought tonight we saw the best example of the Aztecs getting big negative plays, sacks, major tackles for losses.
Yeah, I think there was 10 tackles for loss in the first half, and I don't know how many there were at the end, but 5 sacks, and then the interception they got by Preston was really the result of a hit by Logan Ketchum right in the face of the quarterback. And without that, they probably wouldn't have won tonight, because Pete Thomas, the freshman from Valhalla High School, I thought really played well. And I was impressed with his accuracy more than anything else. Arm strength was a little strained. Doesn't get a lot of zip on the ball, but it seems to land right in the breadbasket of his receivers. So, he played well, and if they didn't have those negative plays, I think Colorado State would have put a lot more points on the board.
You talk about a very exciting freshman in Pete Thomas. There's a very exciting freshman in red and black, Ronnie Hillman, over 150 yards and a touchdown. Through 9 games, no freshman running back, including Marshall Faulk, has run for more yards than Ronnie Hillman. And after the game, he says, 1,000 yards, I don't care.
Yeah, well, he's the first 1,000-yard rusher the Aztecs have had in I believe, 7-8 years since Lionel Hamilton did it. And he was the difference, wasn't he, in the second half? And the way the game opened, I thought this might be the 3rd week in a row that we kind of saw a less than healthy Ronnie Hillman. He's had that hip pointer, and the way it's explained to me, it's not necessarily on the bone right there. It's the muscles around that hip, and he's not been able to get them loose. And every time I look down on the field, when the Aztecs are on defense, Ronnie Hillman is riding the stationary bike. That tells me he can't get that thing loose. And that's what we saw throughout the first half, and I thought, boy, he's just not going to be able to do it tonight. But he got warmed up, right? I mean, in the second half, he got warmed up, and that took over the game. They had 2 touchdown drives in a row, both of which really were controlled by Ronnie Hillman. And I think you're right. That's how good he is that 151 yards tonight kind of looked like a pedestrian evening for him. He didn't have any gigantic runs, although the 26-yard touchdown run was pretty sweet because, I know he wants to go into pro football, but he might also want to think about the circus, because they're always looking for contortionists. I don't know how many replays you saw that, but he leaped from the 5, and his entire body was out of bounds, yet he somehow reached the ball over and kept that in bounds. So that was yet another highlight on a season's worth of highlights for Ronnie.
And the Aztecs now, a winning record. We already knew they were going to go to a bowl. What have we heard all year? Their only goal is the Mountain West Conference Championship. So the main opportunity, the main stumbling block is coming up next week. TCU goes to Rice-Eccles Stadium and destroys Utah today. It was 47-0. They got a gift touchdown at the end, complete gift to make it 47-7. You know, Brady Hoke very upset naturally after this game, saying if you turn over the ball like this, you're going to lose 90% of the time. I think if you played anything like this, you'd lose to TCU 100% of the time. Yeah. They need a 100% better effort.
I think they're going to get it, too. I just do. I mean, I think that's kind of the way the San Diego State team is. There's no way Brady Hoke or any of the players will admit that they were looking ahead tonight, but they were looking ahead tonight. It's just human nature. You've got Colorado State, but you know your big chance is next week against TCU. So I think they're going to be geeked up, and I think they're going to play really well next week. Now, they can play the most perfect game of all time and still lose to TCU. TCU, I think this is the one stat I'll throw at you, Craig. 6 conference games. They've outscored their opponents 236-23. Come on. They've given up 3 touchdowns in 6 conference games, and now the Aztecs are going in there next week. But I think that this coaching staff, it's a big-time coaching staff. We got big-name guys and Brian Sipes and Al Borges and Rocky Longs and Brady. And I just think that they've been kind of pointing to having this opportunity. And I think the last 3 weeks, they're a little bit nervous in terms of saying we got to take care of business so that we can go to TCU and have a chance. Well, now they did. They took care of their business. Now it's going to be their chance. I think they're going to play a hell of a game next Saturday. I can't possibly predict they're going to win it, but I think they're going to play well next week.
Well, whether they win or lose, the fact is the Aztecs won the games they were supposed to win the last 3 weeks. And to me, that's so exciting. We're going to get wet. We better get out of here, Chris.
Nothing can water down our happiness of 7-2. Nothing, Chris.
That's right. We're out of here.